It began with a single ship drifting into a harbor, and within weeks, Europe would face the deadliest disaster in its history. This is the story of the Black Death, a plague that would erase a continent's past and forever reshape its future. The year is 1346. Deep in the heart of Central Asia, a silent killer awakens. It is a bacterium Yersinia pestis, thriving in the blood of fleas that live on black rats. For years, it remains a distant threat, a whisper of sickness in the vast steppes. But the world is changing. New arteries of trade, the legendary Silk Road, connect east and west like never before. Along these routes, not only silks and spices travel, but also this unseen passenger. Caravans move slowly west, carrying goods, merchants, and the seeds of a coming apocalypse. By 1347, the plague reaches the bustling port of Kaffa in the Crimea, a Genoese trading hub on the Black Sea. During a siege, Mongol armies catapult infected corpses over the city walls, one of history's earliest and most terrifying acts of biological warfare. Fleeing the besieged city, Genoese merchants board their ships, desperate to escape. They do not know they are carrying the pestilence with them. Locked away in the holds of their galleys, nestled in the fur of the rats that scurry below deck. But no one understood what was coming. They were sailing toward a world that would soon cease to exist. The ships arrive in Messina, Sicily, in October of 1347. The townspeople who gather at the port are met with a horrifying sight. Most of the sailors aboard are either dead or dying, their bodies covered in black boils. The Sicilian authorities hastily order the fleet of death ships out of the harbor, but it is too late. The rats have already scurried ashore, and the fleas have found new hosts. From the ports of the Mediterranean, the plague explodes across the continent. It moves with a speed that defies comprehension. First Sicily, then mainland Italy, Genoa, Venice, Florence. The jewels of the medieval world become cities of the dead. It follows the trade routes, leaping from port to port, then crawling inland along rivers and roads. France is next, then Spain. By 1348, it reaches Paris. By 1349, it has crossed the Channel into England and pushes deep into Germany. Within 5 years, it engulfs Scandinavia and reaches the remote frontiers of Russia. Europe had never seen death move this fast. The continent's great cities, once centers of life and culture, are overwhelmed. Carts roll through the streets day and night to collect the bodies, which are piled into mass graves, layer upon layer. The air grows heavy with the stench of decay and the unending sound of funeral bells. The disease manifests in 3 horrifying forms. The most common is the bubonic plague, named for the painful, swollen lymph nodes, the buboes that appear in the groin, armpits, and neck. These swellings turn black as the tissue dies, giving the plague its infamous name. Victims suffer a sudden raging fever, chills, and vomiting. Without treatment, death often follows within a week. Another form, the pneumonic plague, attacks the lungs. It is even more terrifying, as it can spread directly from person to person through airborne droplets from a cough. Its victims drown in their own fluids, and death is almost certain. The rarest and most lethal is the septicemic plague, which infects the bloodstream. It kills so swiftly, sometimes within hours, that victims are said to have gone to bed healthy and never woken up. Across Europe, the mortality rates are staggering. In the most afflicted cities, like Florence, up to 60% of the population vanishes in a matter of months. Historians estimate that in just 5 years, between 1/3 and 1/2 of Europe's entire population, perhaps 25 to 50 million people, is wiped from existence. In the face of such relentless loss, the very fabric of society begins to tear apart. The old world was collapsing, and a new one was about to rise. With millions dead, entire villages are abandoned. Fields lie fallow, overgrown with weeds, as there is no one left to plow the land or harvest the crops. The medieval labor system, built on a vast and stable peasant population, shatters. Suddenly, labor is a scarce and precious commodity. For the first time, peasants who survived the plague find themselves with leverage. They can demand higher wages, better conditions, and freedom from the bonds of serfdom. Lords and landowners, desperate for workers, are forced to comply. The rigid social hierarchies that had defined the Middle Ages for 1,000 years begin to crumble. Amid the chaos, reason gives way to fear. Superstition runs rampant. Many believe the plague is a divine punishment, God's wrath visited upon a sinful world. Others look for earthly culprits, and minority groups, particularly Jewish communities, are targeted as scapegoats. Accused of poisoning wells, thousands are massacred in horrific pogroms, a dark testament to the hysteria gripping the continent. Society is in a state of freefall, its foundations shaken to the core. In an age before germ theory, medieval medicine is powerless. Doctors are baffled by the seemingly random nature of the disease. They cling to ancient theories, believing the pestilence is caused by a miasma, a poisonous vapor in the air, or by the unfavorable alignment of the planets. Their treatments are a desperate mix of superstition and flawed science, bloodletting, lancing the buboes, and prescribing potions made of crushed emeralds or arsenic. Many physicians, dressed in their now iconic protective gear, a long coat, gloves, and a beak-like mask filled with aromatic herbs to ward off the miasma, bravely tend to the sick, but most perish alongside their patients. In the absence of a cure, some turn to extreme acts of faith. The flagellants emerge, groups of penitents who march from town to town, whipping themselves in public displays of penance, hoping to atone for humanity's sins and appease an angry God. Yet, amidst the chaos, the first seeds of modern public health are sown. In the port city of Ragusa and later Venice, authorities institute a revolutionary practice: quarantine. Ships arriving from plague-ridden areas are forced to anchor and wait for 40 days a quarantino before anyone can come ashore. It is a simple, desperate measure, but it is the first organized, state-led response to an epidemic in history. The psychological scars left by the plague run as deep as the societal ones. The world is transformed into a place of constant fear and morbid fascination with death. Art becomes obsessed with mortality. The danse macabre, or dance of death, becomes a common motif, depicting skeletons leading people from all walks of life: kings, popes, peasants, and children to their graves. It is a stark reminder that death is the great equalizer, an indiscriminate force that comes for everyone. This new bleak worldview shatters the optimism of the High Middle Ages. Trust in long-standing institutions evaporates. The Church, unable to explain or stop the suffering, loses much of its authority. People question why prayer and piety offer no protection. Survivors are left to navigate a changed world, haunted by trauma and loss, but also emboldened by their survival. The old certainties are gone, replaced by a profound sense of uncertainty and a questioning spirit that will pave the way for a new era of thought. The Black Death was not a singular event, but a turning point from which there was no return. It periodically resurfaced for centuries, a recurring nightmare that kept Europe's population low for over 150 years. But its legacy was not just one of destruction. The immense loss of life inadvertently sparked a rebirth. With the rigid structures of feudalism weakened, a new social and economic mobility emerged. The scarcity of labor led to technological innovation, as people sought new, more efficient ways to work. The failures of medieval medicine spurred a new interest in anatomy and empirical observation, laying the groundwork for the scientific revolution. And the deep cultural shift, the questioning of old authorities, and the new focus on the human experience helped accelerate the intellectual and artistic flowering of the Renaissance. The plague had been an unimaginable tragedy, a demographic catastrophe on a scale never seen before or since. It was a brutal, indiscriminate force that tore the medieval world apart. And from the ashes of devastation, a new world slowly emerged. If you enjoyed this story, hit like, subscribe, and join Hisdocs AI.